Hey everybody, this is Melanie Halstenberg and I'm here with Patrick Bradley and we're with Arch Financial. We're really glad that all of you are on here today. Listen, I really appreciate all of you. And I know that most of you folks are very busy but are very concerned about protecting everything that you've worked your whole life for. You're on here for some information and I'm glad that you've decided to spend some time with us. And tonight we'll just talk about some different retirement ideas and what you guys might have as ideas for your ideal retirement, and maybe mention some of the worries that you may have and also how to truly protect your retirement income. We do our best to create a peace of mind retirement for everyone that we sit down with, but let's just face it, everyone's peace of mind retirement is completely different because people have different goals and different views and things like that. So we try to optimize your retirement to be the best that it can be for you. Now, this presentation tonight is going to last about 40 minutes. So if you can stay on until the very end, we're going to have some special offers for you. So we'll go through a lot of things, but if you can make it through to the very end, then there'll be something there for you, okay? So let's go ahead and get started. Now, I want you to think back maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago. Remember those days where you actually got a paper paycheck? It actually came on a piece of paper. Who knew, right? Now everything is done through direct deposit. You can't even get a Social Security check anymore. You either have to have it put into your bank account or on a card or something like that. So things have changed a lot. So you may have thought about your budgets back then, because you were planning and you were saving, and once you got that paycheck, it was time to go to the bank and cash it. And some of you, you think back to then and you think about budgeting a program and how it might look. Well, it might have looked a little bit like this with all of these different envelopes. So you see a bunch of envelopes here for your rent, your electric, your phone, your groceries, all those different things. And maybe we're trying to save for your kids' college education, and then the very last envelope was always the retirement envelope, right? So we always wanted to make sure that we put something in there. So you were always saving, but your neighbors always had the newest car. They always had, their kids in the best clothes and all those different things, but not you guys, right? You guys were the savers. You were going to save and try to make sure that you gave your kids and yourselves the best lives that you possibly could, and you were contributing to your retirement account. You were putting money away just to make sure that you had it, for later on when you were getting ready to retire. So let's think about what you are not saving for. We're investing, and the reason why we're doing it is so that one day later on, when we're older, when we're retired and we've worked all of these years, we will have some money for little Tommy to come home and live with us, right? And we'll be able to support him and his, even his little ones, We'll support him and his. Even better yet, when we die, we know that our kids will be driving a brand new Corvette to our funeral because we're saving to make them rich one day, right? Now, how many of you remember thinking that while you were saving? No one? See, that's interesting because most people, when they weren't thinking about that, they were thinking about saving. They were thinking about doing what? What were you folks thinking about when you were saving money while you were retiring? You were thinking about those golden years, right? It's like, what are we saving for? What do you want to do when you don't have to work anymore? You might have wanted to travel. Maybe you wanted to play some golf. Maybe you just wanted to go fishing every day. Some of you might have even wanted to go to the casino. Now, some of you might be in the casino right now. You just don't know it. So, we all had different ideas of what we wanted to do other than just making our kids wealthy, right? You made it on your own, and I hope you think that they'll make it on their own. So, you might have to cross your fingers and knock on wood a lot. But now here's the thing. I find that 1 out of 10 people who meet with us for the very first time are actually spending the money on these things that we've just talked about. To go on the cruises, to do the travel, or do all of those different things and do the things that they can afford to do. Whether it's traveling or buying a classic car, or maybe it's saving for your kids' college or your grandkids' college, it's something that's important to you, or maybe it's helping or donating to the church. Whatever those things that are important to you, I find that people just aren't doing it. The majority of people aren't spending. So why are you not spending your money? Tell me, why won't you spend it? It's because you're afraid of running out, right? You're afraid you'll run out. Maybe it's healthcare. What else? Emergencies, taxes. There's lots of different reasons. I call them petrifiers, or those things that would stop you from fulfilling a promise. Because I think it's terrible that a husband and wife, or that somebody that's, an individual saving for later on to go fishing or travel around the world or to buy a classic car, they find themselves at this stage of life breaking a promise they made to themselves 20 years ago or 25 years ago or maybe even 30 years ago. So what I want to do today is I want to show you how you can fulfill that promise that you made to yourself or to your spouse without the risk of running out of money because of health care or taxes or emergencies. So we'll talk about that today, okay? Here are some of the petrifiers or things that may stop you from spending your money. Now, I know petrifiers is not a word, we made it up. So a petrifier might be Social Security or pension instability or market volatility, tax concerns, healthcare, all of those things that we've mentioned already. How many of you remember seeing your biannual Social Security statement that comes in telling you how much Social Security you're going to receive? Remember seeing that every couple years? It's very exciting. It's telling you how rich you're going to be at the age of 62 or 66 or 70 or whatever. Now, do you remember this little portion right here? On the very front page, before you even crack it open, it says without changes, by the year 2033, the Social Security Trust Fund will only be able to pay about 75 cents on the dollar. Now here we are in the year 2017 and it's not that far from now. It's 15, 16 years away. 16 years doesn't seem quite as far in the future as it used to, right? So if we're expecting some significant changes in Social Security, and I'm not trying to scare you or anything, remember, I just told you to spend your money. Now, I'm telling you that Social Security is dying by 25% in just a few years. I think Social Security is going to be around for you folks in the same, hopefully about the same format that it's in today, but what about your kids? Are they going to have Social Security the same way that you do? What do you think? Probably not. I don't know how. My kids probably not going to have Social Security in the same form. So it's going to require some specific planning for my children and my grandchildren to be able to help fund their own retirement and not depend solely on Social Security. So what about pensions? Pensions are bulletproof, unbreakable, uncrackable, right? It's safe always. Anybody work for the state? Right. Have you heard some news about some states' pension funds and their health benefits being underfunded? What about the coal miners? I know that they were just up in Washington, D.C. not too long ago trying to hold on to their benefits. So unfortunately, working for the city of Detroit or something like that it's not necessarily a good place to be counting on your retirement. Pensions aren't as bulletproof as they once seemed to be. So that's another concern of mine. Sometimes that's a petrifier. Or if we look at taxes, taxes have gone up the last couple of years for some people. All right, we heard that taxes are going to go up for those that made more than how much, like 250,000. And depending on who you were asking during the elections, when many people's tax returns have gone or taxes have gone up, did long-term capital gains taxes go up? They may have, even if you make less than $250,000 a year. So taxes are changing frequently. Let me tell you, one of the other petrifiers that may stop you from or prevent you from spending your money is that you just don't know what's going to happen with taxes. Even if they make some changes in this administration, who knows how long it's going to last because they're only there for so long, right? So have you ever thought of your financial advisor as one of the petrifiers? Something that would stop you from spending your money? Let's think about this for a second. It's very counterintuitive for a financial advisor who works off of a management fee of your funds to tell you to spend your money, right? Because if he says, I want you to spend more money, he's saying, in fact, I want you to pay me less, right? Because if you start taking income, you might receive less in he might receive less in commissions as the advisor. Now, if that advisor is doing a great job and making you way more than the fees that are coming out, then that's something, definitely to consider. All right? But you've always got to be aware of where the information is coming from, and if it's not working for you, if that current advisor is not working for you, meeting your goals, then we need to talk about that. There are some real big questions to ask there, all right? So next, we're going to talk about the stock market. Now, if we look at the stock market, and the general consensus is this: if we look at 1970 to the year 2000 especially, even in the last few years, but have you ever heard this statement? If you're a buy and hold investor over a long period of time, the stock market will generally go up. That's right. But is that true? It depends. Define a long period of time, right? Because that's what we have to do. If we're looking at this period of time, then yes, it will generally go up. We believe that the stock market, depending on how long you hold on to it, it'll generally go up. If I was to tell my 18-year-old daughter to hold on to it forever, would she probably see an increase overall? Of course. We could watch her money grow over 40 years. But now, if we look at the last, this is 2000 to 2015, today it's, 2017, we're even up. But this is the last 13, 14 years, okay? So the stock market generally going up, we may be higher than we were back in 2000, but this volatility is what's pretty incredible now. My question for you folks, and I'm not some fancy stock analyst, so I don't really know. I can't predict the future, but I'm asking you, do you think the market will steadily grow forever, or do you think this type of volatility will probably continue on? Seriously, what do you think? You may think that it's going to be volatility. I would agree with that. See the little dip in the 2001 square right here? That one right there? Guess what that is? That's the terrorist attacks. Now that's the towers coming down. Compare that little dip right there to what happened in the subprime market in 2008 and 2009 right here. Now that's completely a game changer right there. That's something that we did to ourselves. Now, we could not control what happened, with the terrorists and things like that. But us as a country, and maybe with some of the regulation and things like that, it can make a major problem to our retirement accounts because we can't control what all of these other people do. So the subprime mortgage crash, it can happen at any time. And it's like, how long will it last? It looks like to me it took about 7 years just to recover from each one of those instances, whether it was 9/11, the tech bubble, or the mortgage crisis. But it takes a little while to recover from those things. So if you're in the middle of retirement, it's something to think about. So now we're going to play a little game. This is the real life money game, all right? So now, if I gave you $2, so each of you starts out with $2. And if we're going to invest that, and we're going to say the very first year, your $2 investment, we have an up market and we have a 50% growth, okay? So if you have your $2, a 50% growth would mean that each of you made another dollar, right? Okay, so we had great gains. This is perfect. It's a big win. So you're all happy. You've all got $3. Good, right? So this is all positive. So if we have that 50% return in one year, what usually happens the following year? Anybody want to guess? Maybe a down year, right? It's a correction. I just love that word. It's called a correction, which means you should have, probably been a little positive about it because you were expecting it, right? So we're going to say after that great year, the next year, guess what? We have a 50% loss. So one year we had a 50% increase and one year we had a 50% loss on your $3. So what does that mean? If you made 50% the first year and lost 50% the second year, how much do you put into the market bites bucket? That's right, $1.50. So the second year return is negative 50%. So the market bit you. You each lost 50%. So that $3 minus 50% is $1.50, right? So now the good news is we've gotten an average return of 0, right? 50% up, 50% down. So what's your average return? 0, right? The average return is 0. But it doesn't look like 0, does it? Why is that? Because you have less money than what you started with, right? Because we started out with $2 and now we're down to $1.50. So the average return is 0, but the actual return is negative 25. So we lost 25% of our original principal. So it's something to think about, because have any of you ever seen a mutual fund perspective or a 401k prospectus or a variable annuity, the type of one where it shows you the average returns, like the 5-year average, the 10-year average, or the 2-year average? Have you seen those? Of course you have. So beware of that word that says average, all right? And the reason I say beware of the average word is because where average is used compared to actual, we see two very different numbers. The average was 0, 50 up, 50 down, but the actual was negative 25. So which number would you be shown in the prospectus, 0 or negative 25? Well, it depends, right, on the prospectus. But normally you show a 0 and that's the information they give you to base your decision on. Doesn't seem quite fair, does it? So my job is to arm you and to help protect your retirement from understanding some of the stuff that's out there, okay? So protecting your principal becomes key. So you don't want to have your principal bitten into, all right? Now, so let's talk about some good market years. Were any of you working from the years of 1982 to 1999? It's a 17-year period back then. Remember thinking this? Remember thinking, oh man, I've got a great 401k. Remember thinking, oh man, everything is great. I've got these great stocks, or I've got a great financial advisor. Remember hearing that? Wrong, wrong, and wrong. Because what we know today is since the late 1800s, the Dow Jones has had only truly 4 bull markets, 4 of them, and the period from right here, from 1987 to 1999, that 17-year period, actually it's 1982 to 1999, that 17-year period there, the Dow Jones went up over 1,000%. You were not in a great 401k, you did not have a great financial advisor, and you were not picking good stocks. What you were is you were in the right place at the right time, right? Because it went up 1,000% over 17 years. You couldn't lose. You'd have to try to lose in those years. So it wasn't necessarily that, you were doing all of the right things. It was just you couldn't lose during that period. So now you have to ask yourself, is hoping that you're in the right place at the right time a sound retirement strategy? It's something to think about, because, for pre-retirees and retirees that have just retired, you just have to make sure that you have a sound retirement plan. Because what if you were to take a loss like in 2001 and 2002 or 2008 and 2009, and then you have to start taking your money out because you need it to live on? You may not have enough money in order to last for the rest of your life. You don't have the kind of time that you need in order to recover. So it's something to think about. And I know this because, my mom calls me her retirement plan and it's all those different things. But do you really want to be dependent on your kids because you've run out of money? Most of us don't. We don't want to be a burden to our families. So let's take an in-depth look at some of the petrifiers that are out there when it comes to our retirement plans, okay? First, we have to look at that market volatility. We just saw it in the graphs that I showed you just a little bit ago. Now, when something like that happens, if we're in retirement, it goes up and down like a roller coaster, and it would be tough to adjust the income that you need each and every year if you were to have losses and have to go down in the amount of money that you took out. So we really can't afford to have market volatility when we are working off of our retirement plans. We also have to look at our administration. You know, the current administration has been in there for a few months and hasn't really been able to do much. You know, they've been trying to do some tax reform. They've been trying to, change a couple of things, but seems to, be going kind of slow. So we haven't been able to change our health care. We haven't been able to change the taxes, and it feels like we're a little bit stagnant. And I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I feel like I'm just one angry tweet away from losing half of everything I've saved my whole life. So it's kind of scary to think that other people are actually controlling everything that we've worked our entire lives for. Then we have to think about inflation. Inflation is the silent thief to your spending power in your retirement plan, because as those rates they start to increase and food goes up and gas goes up and all these different costs start going up, then we don't have as much spending power. So $1 million today might only be worth four or $500,000 10 years from now. We just don't know how it's going to go. Then we have to think about deflation. Deflation is where, we just start printing money in order to keep everything going. And right now we have $19 trillion in debt, and it just seems to keep going up further and further. And eventually that debt is going to have to be paid, and how are we going to do that? How's it going to hurt us? What's it going to do to our retirement plans? What's it going to do to the markets? When people lose confidence in what's going on in the economy, people get scared, and different things start going on. Then we have health care. Health care doesn't ever go down, it doesn't seem like. It just keeps going up and up and up. Your Medicare Part B premiums keep raising each and every year. We did get a cost of living increase in our Social Security this year of 0.3%, but our Medicare Part B premium went up almost $20. So it really just ate itself up, and we are going to have another increase in our Part B premium come January. So these costs keep going up and our Social Security isn't keeping up. So we have to make sure that we have enough money for the health care that we're going to need later on. And then there's the prescription drugs. If you're on tier 1 or tier 2, the medication is pretty inexpensive, but once you start getting into tier 3 and tier 4, we have some clients that are paying $12,000 for their prescription drugs, and that's with a prescription drug plan. So it's something that we really do have to keep abreast of and make sure that we plan for that. Now that we're living longer, most of us need to look at some sort of long-term care. 72% of us are going to need some sort of long-term care before we die, whether it's at home or in a nursing home or, like assisted living or something like that. Some of us are going to need, about 3/4 of us are going to need some sort of long-term care, and it's very expensive. You're looking right now at maybe $90,000 a year if you have to have full-time, full care, long-term care. And it can be the biggest drain to your retirement plan. And then if you think, I don't have a plan for long-term care, let me tell you, everybody does have a plan. You may not like it, but everybody's got one. It's called the spend down. So, if something happens and you have to go into a long-term care facility, the government could make you spend down all of your assets, just leaving you with a certain amount, and then start putting liens on your property. So we help people prepare for the long-term care crisis that may come in retirement. Maybe you're afraid of withdrawing too much too fast, and a lot of people are, or maybe they're not, and that's even scarier than if they are. So there's something called the 4% rule that came into play during those 17 years when we had that 1,000% increase. It was called the 4% withdrawal rule. And this man, his name was Bill Bengen, he came up with the rule, during that time when the market just seemed to go up and up all of the time. And basically what the rule is, just to keep it kind of short, is if you withdraw 4% each and every year with a cost of living increase, over a 30-year period, you would have a 76% chance of making it through retirement. Well, the problem with this rule is now that we've had the tech bubble, we've had 9/11, we've had the mortgage crisis, and we've had all of these major dips in the market. The problem is the 4% rule might be too much. So the Wall Street Journal a few years later said that you might want to be at a withdrawal rate of maybe 2%. Or another financial publication called MarketWatch said that it might even need to be a little bit lower, like at 1.49%. So if you had to go from $40,000 a year, if you had $1,000,000, 4% would be $40,000. And then the Wall Street Journal says you might need to be around 2%. So that'd take you down to $20,000. And then the MarketWatch piece says you might be around 1.49%. So that'd take you down to $14,900. So the thing is you really don't know how much you can take out. So what happens with that? Maybe it's the next point. Maybe people aren't withdrawing enough so that they can actually have their golden years in retirement. So that's another thing. It's like that's when it comes back to, you're making your kids rich because you're afraid to spend your money. So we want to make sure that we come up with a solid plan that gives you confidence on how much money you can take out each and every month from your retirement plan, because to this point it was pretty easy, right? Our companies said to us that that they just want you to pick what kind of investor that you are, whether you're conservative or moderate or aggressive or whatever it might be, and then they take the money out and they put the money in for you. But now we have this big old pile of cash and we have to figure out how to turn it into guaranteed income, because the happiest people in retirement have some sort of guaranteed income. All right. But then we also have to think about the taxes and how are we going to overcome the taxes and do everything as tax friendly as we possibly can, because we've been deferring all of these taxes through our 401k and we have to make sure that we do it right. So when we take all of these different petrifiers, longevity is the number one risk in retirement, because it's not just a risk, it's a risk multiplier. Because let's face it, the longer we live, the more opportunity we have for market volatility. I mean, we could have a stock market crash. If we have a 30 or 40-year retirement, we could even have a couple of them. And then we have to live through trying to climb back up out of it. And then the longer that we live, we're going to go through a few different presidents, right? And they all have a different opinion on how everything's going to be fixed. Then there's going to be more inflation the longer that we live. There's going to be more deflation the longer that we live. Healthcare costs are going to continue to go up. And the longer we live, that's going to be a bigger drain on our retirement plans. Then also with the long-term care, the longer that we live, the more of a chance that we're going to need that long-term care. Because how many people out there know somebody in their 90s? Did you realize when Social Security was started, our death age or our mortality age was only 60 years old, and then we couldn't even collect our Social Security until we were 65? So we weren't ever supposed to collect it. So that's something to think about, is that, the longer we live, there's a chance that we're going to need that long-term care, and maybe for a longer period. The longer we live, the chance of us drawing out too much too fast is an incredible petrifier, because if we live for 30 or 40 years into retirement, that's almost as long as we worked. So we have to make sure that we have guaranteed lifetime income in order to make sure that we take care of that. And then we want you to withdraw enough, so that you can actually enjoy your retirement. And then the taxes, the longer we live, we know that we're going to have to pay the taxes on everything. So you might be asking yourself, how do you grow your money? Should your age affect your risk tolerance? Absolutely. And we want to make sure you know how to grow your money. Again, if you came to hear tonight about a retirement savings plan, it's wrong place, wrong time. This is not about retirement savings plans. This is about a retirement spending plan, okay? So let's talk about some ways to figure out how to do that. And one of the ways that we can do that is let's talk about that risk tolerance that we just spoke about. Have you ever heard the phrase, what is your risk tolerance? How much can you afford to lose? You've heard that before, right? Well, I think that most retirees, it's not about the accumulation as much anymore. It's about keeping what you've worked your whole life for and making sure that you don't lose any of it. Then we just have to figure out how is it that we can turn that into an income that can last for the rest of my life. Just like my pension or just like my Social Security. I want as much guaranteed income that I can get for the rest of my life. So, and finally, in your 60s, this is James Cramer, Jim Cramer. You guys know the guy. He's the boo-ah guy, whatever. So he says fixed income should dominate in retirement. Your opportunities to grow your money are limited now, and the reward may not be worth the risk. So it's like, how much can I afford to lose and still be able to live the life that I want to live? Or maybe it's that you need to live. We want to make sure that all of those base expenses are covered by lifetime income. And then there's Susie Orman. She says the bottom line, if you're willing to give up some of the upside potential, you can also protect yourself totally against downside risk with an indexed annuity. You're like, Melanie, what is an indexed annuity? Well, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that when we sit down and see if it even fits what your goals are for retirement, because it may not be right for you. But for those that it is right for an indexed annuity basically gives you lifetime income. So no matter how long you live, that income will be there for the rest of your life. Okay, so even if you live to be 105 years old, you know how you watch on the Today Show and, they come on with the Smucker's jar and they talk about, all of these people that are over the age of 100. Well, let me tell you, right now we have about 50,000 people over the age of 100, but the estimate by the time 2030 comes along is well over 200,000 people being 100 years old or older. So it's important to make sure that you have lifetime income to last as long as you do, because that's the number one fear of many retirees, is running out of money before they die. So we have ways that we can help you with that, and all we want to do is just sit down with you and see if anything that we say, or anything that we have fits your particular retirement and give you peace of mind retirement. So it's not just what you earn, it's what you keep that counts. This is from Benjamin Franklin. So we want to make sure that we don't have our retirement dollars that we are completely dependent on. We want to make sure that we have enough income to make sure that those basic bills each and every month, along with your Social Security or your pensions or whatever, we just want to make sure that those things are covered, okay? So you might be asking yourself, what's next? And like I said, as we got to the end here, everyone in this webinar is entitled to a complimentary consultation with myself and Pat. We come to you, you can choose a phone consultation or a face-to-face consultation. We come to you for your face-to-face consultation, so we come to your home and we sit down with you. We just want to get to know you and find out what your goals are, find out what's important to you, maybe find out what some of the fears are that you have with retirement, and come up with a plan to try to minimize those fears. So we will uncover the gaps in your retirement plan, and together we develop a strategy for your peace of mind retirement. Now, our website is www.bridgeyourmoney.com, and our phone numbers, these are our cell phone numbers so that you can catch us all of the time, is 304-673-7115 or 304-320-9655. Okay? So, again, I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. And like I said, there would be an offer for you tonight for everyone that's on this webinar. We're going to be giving everyone a call over the next couple of days to schedule your free consultation. And remember, I said we come to you. So there are no excuses for not having an optimized retirement plan to give you some peace of mind. Also, for those of you that do schedule an appointment with us, we're going to bring you a book from one of our top authors to help you out with retirement, maybe give you some additional retirement ideas and different ways that you can secure your retirement, and give you the confidence that you need in order to live the way that you want to and have those golden years that we all dream of. So with that being said, make sure that you write down our phone numbers, but even if you don't, we're going to be calling you over the next couple of days, and we'll just sit down. We'll chit chat. We'll see what your dreams, your goals are, find out what your fears are, and try to come up with the most optimal plan that we possibly can for you, okay? So thanks again for attending. We appreciate all of you, and we look forward to talking to you. Take care.